Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, we're gonna discuss about a very important topic, which is residential status in India. So let's quickly see what we're gonna discuss in this video. So first, we will discuss residential status in India, and we will see why we need to know our residential status. The second bit, which we will be discussing a type of residential status in India. So that we're going to discuss for the individuals. There are lots of categories like HUF and AOPs or companies, but in this video we're going to see only for the individuals, right? And the third bit which we will see are conditions or rules, and that we will see as per the Income Tax Act, Section 6. Uh, the fourth bit which we're going to see is exceptions to residential status. So as we know, there are some exceptions in each field. So we will see what are those exceptions, and I'll explain you in detail. The other bit which we will see, Income Tax Act, Section 6. So I'll show you where you can check and how you could check that. The other bit is I'll be showing you the website extract from the Income Government of India site. And the last bit which we gonna discuss scenarios or cases with examples. So I'll show you like what are those scenarios, like how or someone can stay in India and how they would be getting a residential status, or they would not be getting a residential status. Residential status in India. So why we need to know? This is basically because when you're gonna file your income tax return, it's very important to know the residential status, because that will determine the first bit which ITR form, which income tax return form you need to file, and the other bit is that will help you to determining the tax slabs. So let's quickly see type of residential status in India. I'm talking about the individuals here because there are lots of categories, not lots of, there are few categories, which like HUF, Hindu divided families, or companies, or AOPs and all. So we're not discussing that here. So let's see for the individuals. Broadly, there are two categories. The first is resident, and if you're not resident, then you are a non-resident. Okay. Within resident, it's again to divide it into two categories. It's The first one is resident and ordinarily resident, that sometimes also referred as ROR, and second category is a resident but not ordinary resident. Uh, this can also be referred as RNOR. So we will see what these categories means and what would be those conditions which would be satisfied in later side. Okay, let's quickly see the conditions and rules as per Income Tax Act Section 6. So first we will see about resident. So the first condition is if you are spending 182 days or more in previous year. So if you are doing for assessment year 2021, your previous year or financial year would be 1920, right? So in this year, if you are spending 182 days or more, you will become a resident, right? But what if you're not spending that time, right? So if you are spending less time, what would happen? So what government did, they provide a second condition, right? So there's a or. So if you're not satisfying this condition in the previous year, even if you are having 60 days or more, and in 4 previous preceding year, if you are spending 365 days or more, you will also become a resident, right? So you know this is the assessment year, say 2021. Previous year would be 1 year back, 1920. Then 4 previous preceding years. You have to count from here 1, 2, 3, 4. And in these 4 previous preceding year, if you are spending 365 days or more, and this is and in previous year you are spending 60 days or more, you will become a resident. So let's take example. If you are spending 150 days, right, in India, then obviously you will not fall into this category. But since you will satisfy this category, because 150 would be more than 60 days or more, and if we say you never went outside, so you would be having 365 days or more in 4 previous preceding year, you will become a resident of India, right? So if none of these conditions you will satisfy, then you will become a non-resident, right? So the people are very smart. So with this rule, they think, yeah, if we can spend 60 days or more in previous year and 365 days or more in 4 previous preceding year, we would become a resident. But yeah, government is also smart. So what they did, they made a subcategories for the resident, right? So let's see what these subcategories are. So the first category is ROR, that means resident and ordinary resident, and what these conditions are. So the first condition says if you are spending 730 days or more in previous preceding years. So till now we were seeing about this 4 previous preceding year. Now it's been further increased to 7. So just count from here, from your previous year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So if you're spending 730 days or more in 7 previous preceding year, and and last 10 previous preceding year, if you are maintaining your resident status at least 2 years, right? So then you will become a ROR, right? And yeah, just be very clear, whatever we are doing for the years, we are taking this time from 1st April to 31st March, right? So if you are satisfying these two conditions, you will become a ROR, and if not, then you will become a RNOR. That means resident but not ordinary resident. Once you obtain resident status, these are subcategories. Okay, so that's what these bracket means. Okay, now let's see what these exceptions to residential status. So there are three conditions. Three conditions where only first condition, that is 182 days or more, would be applicable in the previous year. So the first condition is if you are an Indian citizen and leaves India for employment outside India, right? So suppose you're working in India with some company, and let's say you're living India in US or UK, and get an employment there, right? So if you're leaving India for employment purpose, then uh, your first condition would only be applicable. So the second condition, which I set for 60 days or more in previous year plus 365 days or more in 4 previous preceding years. So the second condition will not be applicable, right? The second is if you are an Indian citizen and member of crew of Indian ship, right? So if you are a member of crew of Indian ship, then also this 182 days or more conditions would be applicable, and the second condition won't be applicable to determine your resident status. And the third is if you are Indian citizen or Indian origin person, right? And being outside India, and if you come to India for say visit or for educational, for any purpose in previous year, then also in that condition, uh, this 182 days or more condition would be applicable, and the second condition won't be applicable. So just understand the difference between Indian citizen or Indian origin person, right? So suppose you are living in India and go outside, say you go UK and get married with some person, her or him, and then you get babies, and then if your child would be coming to India, they would be uh, considered as an Indian origin, right? So they are not Indian citizen. They may or may not be Indian citizen, but yeah, they would be considered as a Indian origin, right? So if they come to India, say for example, visit or is for any educational purpose, uh, then this 182 days or more would condition would be applicable, right? If you go to this link, uh, you will see all these sections under, say, section 6. So if you search there, it would be showing you residence in India. And yeah, if you click there, you can find, I'll show you all these. So this is a quick snapshot, what I taken from Government of India website. Whatever we discussed, that's been written here on this website. You would see Income Tax India government website. And if you go on section 6, you have to click here. It will be showing you this one, and you can see all these rules. Okay, let's now discuss with the scenarios and cases. I've just put this chart which we discussed in the earlier slides. So let's take this example where you're spending 150 days. If a person is spending 150 days in a previous or financial year, so in this case, whether it would be a resident here or non-resident. So if he's spending 150 days, so 150 days is less than this one, so this condition won't be fulfilled. Now let's see what this condition, what the second condition is fulfilling, right? So suppose this person has spent 30 days in for previous preceding year, right? So he has spent 150 days in the previous year. So this is fulfilling this condition because it's 60, more than 60 days. But if he is spending 30 days, because this is less days in the four preceding year, uh, this condition will also not be satisfied. So in this case, both condition 1 and condition 2, it would be false. Okay, so in this scenario, it won't be a resident. So if it's not a resident, then yeah, it would be a non-resident, right? So it would be a non-resident, right? Let's take another example. Again, if a person is spending 150 days in India in previous year, so we see this condition is not true. So this is false. The first condition is false. Now let's see whether it's satisfying the second condition. So suppose in 4 previous preceding years, like up to here, if he is, suppose he is spending 366 days, right? So that is more than 365 days, right? So because he's spending 150 days and that's more than 60 days, it's satisfying these conditions. Then the second condition gets true. So in this scenario, he can become a resident. So he would be a resident. I'll show you later whether it's a ROR or RNOR. So let's first see whether it's a person is resident and a non-resident, and then we'll see whether it's ROR or RNOR. Okay. Uh, in the third scenario, let's see a person is spending 183 days in India. Okay, so in this case, it's satisfying this condition because yeah, it gets true. So if any of these gets true, then you could become a resident, right? So I've just put the number to show ROR or RNOR status. But in case of resident, because it's spending 183 days, it's not applicable. It will be applicable to determine whether the person is ROR or RNOR, but yeah, to determine resident status, this is fine. Okay, so let's take this last one. So if the person is spending, say, 50 days in previous year, okay, so 50 days, it's not satisfying here as well, and it's not satisfying because it's less than 60. So neither of these condition gets satisfied. So the condition 1 is false and condition 2 is also false. So if both is false, then it won't be a resident. It would be becoming a non-resident. All right. Now, for those who become a resident, let's see whether they are ROR or RNOR, right? So for these two, whether it's a resident, so this for this condition where it's 366 days here. So now to determine ROR or RNOR, we have to go back 7 and 10 years, right? So Let's check their conditions, what they were there in 7 years or 10 years, right? So the first condition, suppose he has spent say 800 days in 7 previous preceding years, so up to here. So if he has spent up to say, 800 days, 7 previous preceding year, and he has also maintained a 2 years resident status, because he would be satisfying these two conditions, he will become a ROR, ordinary resident, right? In this second example, say let's say the person is a resident, but he has spent 700 days, right? So 700 days, because it's less than 730, so this condition will become false, right? So if any of these gets false, uh, then it would be like 1 0. If one is one is say true or zero is false, then it would be a, let's say, false. So it won't be a ROR. Then if the person is not ROR, then it would be a RNOR, right? So I hope it would be very much clear. Okay, so for all these scenarios, say if you are going outside for employment, or if you're merchant navy, or joining as an Indian ship member, or you are say resident or Indian origin, and you come to visit India from outside. So in all those conditions, only this condition 182 days or more would be applicable. This condition won't be applicable. So I have not taken that example here, but I think it would be pretty much clear, like how you could decide whether you are a resident or non-resident. And once you decide whether you are resident, you can easily decide whether you are ROR or NOR. So just keep this diagram keep in view, and I think you can easily determine your resident status. So while filing your income tax return form, also just take this diagram in view and just determine whether which form is applicable or which tax slab is applicable for you, right? So I hope it's very clear to you. So if you learn something new, and if that makes your concept clear, just subscribe this channel, like this video if you find something useful. Thanks for watching. Bye.